Welcome on in. Belly up, have a seat, grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome on into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. It is Saturday, November 29th. This is episode 201, and it's our very first edition of Inside the League. In this show, we dedicate all the talk to the Wingman Fantasy Football League, where we will close the books on Week 12 and transition into Week 13. We'll go back in time for the Week 12 rewind. We'll check the updated standings, take a gander at our Goose-O-Meter. We unveil a brand new segment that I like to call the best and worst, where we crown the best and worst managers for their Week 12 decisions. And we see if we've added any pups to the kennel in this week's sad puppies. Then we'll look forward into Week 13 of the Wingman Fantasy Football League, where we will check in on the waiver wire activity, see who's on top of the newest power rankings, and we'll go over this week's matchups in the Wingman Fantasy Football League. But before we do any of that, I'd like to make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, it is time to go back in time as we recap the Week 12 Rewind.
Let's go back! Week 12 Rewind.
All right, starting off with our first game on the docket here, we have Nick's Waddle Away up against Michael's Amazing Spidey. Nick's Waddle Away came into this one at 6-5, while Michael's Amazing Spidey came in at 5-6. And Nick's Waddle Away took this one down 98.77 to 92.21, just over a 6.5 point differential. For Amazing Spidey, he has now lost 2 games in a row, but Nick's Waddle Away is rolling at 4 wins in a row.
Keep rolling, rolling. Keep rolling.
On to our next game. We have Ben's Go Gators coming in at 6-5 up against Paul's Cubert Rage, who's also 6-5. A huge game to try and get your team into a better shot to make the playoffs here. And Ben's Go Gators, in a low-scoring battle, was able to take this one down 80.26 to 69. 69.04. Now Ben's Go Gators has won 2 games in a row and has improved to 7-5. Our next game on the docket is Ken's the Fantastics at 5-6 up against Reggie's Lionize at 2-9. And the Fantastics kept it rolling, getting back up to 500 with a 102.36 to 80.92 victory. Unfortunately for Reggie's Lionize, he has now lost 2 games in a row. And now we have Bernie's Team B at 6-5, our point leader, up against Jeff's Always Right, who's tied for first place, but is in second place due to tiebreaker. And this time we had a game where Bernie's Team B won 90.96 to 77.08. Unfortunately, Bernie's team has now won 3 games in a row.
Keep rolling. Keep rolling.
And unfortunately for Jeff's Always Right, after starting the season off 5-0, is slumping late in the season. He has now lost 3 games in a row.
You're as cold as ice.
All right, now it's time to get into our featured matchups for this week, where we take a deeper dive into the matchups here. Starting off with Andrew's Crazy Fish coming in at 5-6 up against Katie's King George, who came to this week at 6-5. And man, oh man, did we have an upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Not only did Andrew's Crazy Fish get this victory at a score of 103.06, to 67.50. He has now won 2 games in a row, and after starting off the season at 0-5, he has finally climbed back to 500 to be 6-6, and he has finished the turnaround of his season. And this ended up being our biggest blowout of the week of a differential of just over 35 points.
You got knocked the fuck out, man!
Unfortunately for Katie's King George, she has now lost 3 games in a row.
You're as cold as ice!
All right, let's see what players helped Crazy Fish take this one down, rather. Starting off with his quarterback, Dak Prescott, at 29.06 points.
He's heating up.
Emmanuel Wilson, he went into the pond for this one. He went streaming, picking up Emmanuel Wilson, who came through with 25.5 points.
He's heating up.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
And his kicker, Tyler Loop, for the Baltimore Ravens, came through with 11.3 points.
He's on fire.
Crazy Fish did have one dud in his starting lineup as Ricky Pearsall left it all on the field as he only had 1.8 points. And he had a huge player on his bench. The LA Rams defense at 17 points were left on the bench. And Kenneth Gainwell, for the second straight week, came through with points on the bench at 15.25 points.
He's heating up.
All right, let's look at Katie's King George team. She only had one player that was a top performer, and that, of course, was the great Bijan.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
Bijan Robinson came through with 13.7 points.
He's heating up.
She did have one dud in her starting lineup of Jerry the Judge Judy at 4.4 points, and Christian Kirk on the bench had 13.9 points. Both these teams made it through without any new injuries, although Crazy Fish has been dealing with many injuries going into this week. All right, on to our next game. This was our closest game of the week, our highest scoring game of the week of a combined over 205 points between the two managers. We had Corey's May Daddy 2s coming in at 6-5 up against Alex's They Took Our Jobs, who is also at 6-5. And like I said, this was a close one as May Daddy 2s took this one down 105.82 to 99.49. This game came in at just under a 6-point differential. And man, this one was a nail biter. They were both projected at 104 points going into the week. Going into the Sunday night game, after all the day games had been completed, the score was 89.5 to 86.65 in favor of May Daddy 2s. And Alex's They Took Our Jobs had a Sunday night stack of Baker Mayfield and Kyron Williams. Unfortunately, those guys did not have a great output as they combined for 12.84 points. However, with that being in the books, that was enough to take the lead for Alex's They Took Our Jobs. Now going into Monday night, we had a 10-point advantage for Alex's They Took Our Jobs, but he had to survive the San Francisco stack of Brock Purdy and the San Francisco defense. And despite not having a huge day, only having to get 10 points combined, they did just that. Purdy and San Francisco combined for 16.32 points to earn themselves the 6-point victory. For May Daddy 2s at 105.82 points, he was the highest scoring team of the week. And unfortunately for Alice, as they took our jobs, he came in as the highest scoring loser of the week.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
All right, let's see what kind of fireworks we had in our starting lineups this week to help them get to these high scores. We had Jackson Smith and Jigba keeps chugging along. This man is amazing. At 33.1 points, JSN came through as the second highest scoring positional player this week. He also had Derek King Henry come through with 21.8 points.
He's on fire.
And Michael Wilson, for the second straight week, was a top performer. This time he made it into the starting lineup for May Daddy 2s, and Michael Wilson came through with 16.8 points.
He's heating up.
You think that with all these high scores, it would have been even a bigger game for May Daddy 2s, but he had a huge dud in his starting lineup. He had Jamison Williams for the third time this year, and the second time in the starting lineup gets 0.0 points. There was no one on the bench, however, who could have improved May Daddy 2's score, not by much anyway, and he made it through the week without any major injuries. All right, let's take a look a little deeper into Alex's They Took Our Jobs lineup this week, as he had Jahmyr Gibbs at a whopping 49.9 points.
He's on fire!
In Jacoby, Michael Myers came through with 14.3 points.
He's on fire!
And the Atlanta defense chipped in with 11.74 points. But this is where Alex's They Took Our Jobs lost this one. He had 4 duds in his starting lineup this week. That's what combats that 49.9 point output by Jahmyr Gibbs. He had Kyron Williams at only 5.3 points, Trey Tucker at 4.3 points, DeAndre Swift at 3.4 points, and Stephon Diggs at 3 point even. And Alex's They Took Our Jobs is going to be kicking himself, as he had better players on the bench here who could have helped the output here. Jacoby Myers at 13 points on the bench would have been a difference maker. Brandon McManus had a strong game at 12.2, but he did not outscore the kicker that he did start this week. Unfortunately for Alex, They Took Our Jobs, one of the main reasons he suffered a loss this week was the fact that I didn't even put him down. There's a dud. Baker Mayfield only had 7.5 points, and he left the game at halftime here, and that's what was a big factor in this loss. Baker Mayfield is dealing with that shoulder injury. He is listed as day-to-day and may be questionable heading into Week 13. All right, on to our last game of note here. We have Brian's under 40. He came in as the number 1 seed at 8-4. Jimerson's Red Sox Nation at 4-8. This was a last gasp effort for Red Sox Nation, with a loss here would all but eliminate him from playoff contention. And unfortunately, our number 1 seed had a TCB taking care of business, taking this one down 93.82 to 78.62. Let's see what performers helped Brian's under 40 get on top and finish this week at 8-4. I think I said he came in at 8-4. He came in at 7-4, and with his victory, he's improved to 8-4. And with Red Sox Nation came in this week at 4-7 and is now fallen to 4-8. All right, top performers for Brian's under 40: Ashton Genty at 20.8 points even, Devontae Adams at 20.7 points even, and Brian's under 40 under Bernie's advice here, went into the stream, picked up Darnell Mooney, and it paid off at 14.9 points.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
And the Houston defense had a dominating effort against the Buffalo Bills, getting 11.5 points. He did have a couple of duds in his lineup that capped his output here. Tyler Shuck did suck at 11.92 points, and Josh Downs could only get 2 points. There was no one on the bench that really could have helped him out in this week. And Brian's under 40 made it through the week without any major injuries. We had Ashton Genty get a little banged up at the end of that game. However, he is off the injury report and going to be good to go for Week 13. All right, now for the top performers for Jimerson's Red Sox Nation. He had Rashee Rice at 20.1 points. 20.1 points.
He's on fire!
Jaylen Warren is not the best running back in the backfield for Pittsburgh, at least not recently, but he did have a nice day at 12.8 points. Now for the duds. Josh Allen, after having just had 46 points just the week prior, had a huge dud at 12.12 points. This really was Josh Allen versus the Houston defense on the NFL, and Josh Allen versus the Houston defense in this fantasy matchup. Dallas Goedert was also a dud at 3 points, and the Kansas City defense, going into overtime, had almost 5 full periods. By the end of it, came out with the goose. There was one strong player on Red Sox Nation's bench. That was Parker Washington at 15.6 points. And both of these teams made it through the week without any major injuries. All right, with the games in the books, it is now time to take a look at the updated standings. All right, as you can see here now, we have all by himself in first place. He was in first place due to tiebreaker, but Brian's under 40 is holding the spot all by himself at 8-4, our first team in the league to get to 8 wins. And we have 2 teams tied for second place. Mac Daddy 2's and Team B both at 7-5. May Daddy 2's is on top due to being atop of his division, but Team B is the point leader overall. So Team B jumped from, he's actually stayed 3 this whole time, but May Daddy 2's with a big jump from 6 to 2 as he took the tiebreaker and atop of his division, the Odd Ducks. Ben's Go Gators jumped up a spot from 5 to 4 as he is now 6-6. Always Right falling down to 7-5, had a huge drop, falls from 2 to 5 in the standings. Waddle Away gets his 4th victory in a row, and with that is now 7-5, and a huge jump from outside the playoff line to inside. He jumps from 9 to 6. Cubert's Rage drops from 4 to 7, holding on to that last playoff spot. Friendly reminder, we only have 7 playoff spots this year, guys. And Alex, as they took our jobs, falls down here to 6-6, and he is just outside of the playoffs. Katie's King George is also 6-6, and she falls down to 9th place, while Crazy Fish, after improving to 6-6, stays in the same spot. This is exactly what happened to me when I won a game and I didn't move. He needs to get more points for some tiebreakers. The Fantastics stays at 11, and our final 3 are all the same. Our final 5 are all the same here. Crazy Fish, Fantastics, Amazing Spidey, Red Sox Nation, and Lionized round out the bottom of the standings. All right, guys, you heard some scores and you heard some duds. Let's take a look at our updated Goose-O-Meter.
I'm just cruising along.
This was our worst week in terms of the number of gooses. We had 4 gooses this week, guys. We are now up to 19 total gooses. We had May Daddy 2s with Jameson Williams, Red Sox Nation with the Kansas City defense, Cubert's Rage at Jordan Addison, and Always Right with the self-inflicted Josh Jacobs inactive 0. That means May Daddy 2s is now back on top of the Goose-O-Meter leaderboard as he has 4 gooses this year, 2 of them by Jameson Williams. All right, guys, it is now time to unveil a brand new segment for you guys. This one's called The Best and the Worst for Week 12.
Hey, guys. Did you find it?
Nope.
But check this out.
Wingman Fantasy Football League. Best manager moves and worst manager moves. In this week's Best and Worst.
All right, thumbs up. Ready, guys? Let's do this.
Stick to the pledge.
You
Stick to the plan.
are the absolute worst!
All right, guys, in this segment, we are going to go over which strategy proved to be most fruitful in this week and which was the worst. All right, again, this is all in good fun, guys, so don't take this too personally here. All right, our manager with the best strategies this week goes to Andrew's Crazy Fish with his top 2 wide receivers, Brian Thomas and Drake London, out again. Crazy Fish had to go fishing as he went into the deepest waters of the stream, starting with his acquisition of Emmanuel Wilson with his last $35 fab acquisition here, the last $35 in fab budget. He literally went all in to try and manufacture this win. And that wasn't just it. However, as he also went with the young Bengals wide receiver, Andre Yushevis, with the suspension to Jamar Chase, both these players combined for over 34 points in his starting lineup, with Emmanuel Wilson doing most of the heavy lifting of the streamed duo. With an 0-5 start to the season, Crazy Fish has now clawed and climbed all the way back to 6-6 and has a chance to make a fantasy football postseason run. Unfortunately, this week's worst manager in terms of strategy and decision-making goes to Jeff's Always Right, Starting off the season at 5-0, he was on cruise control, but with some minor injuries and ill-timed bye weeks, Always Right had a mid-season slump. Coming into week 12, he was still tied for first place and had a big opportunity to keep the point leader, Bernie's team, be 2 games back in the standings. All right, I don't want to rag too hard here, but fantasy football may not be the number 1 priority in life, but leaving the inactive Josh Jacobs in his starting lineup to earn the most unforced of gooses. Making matters even worse was the fact that Kareem Hunt was on his bench and scored over 20 points. This lack of a substitution cost him the game and maybe even a playoff berth. This week's best and worst goes to Andrew's Crazy Fish and Jeff's Always Right. All right, guys, after this week here, we're going to see if anything's changed. We're going to look to see if we have any new sad puppies.
Wingman Fantasy Football. Sad puppies.
All right, guys. It's been a long time coming. I was holding off out of respect for the departed. Lionized, oh, lionized. In 2020, you were crowned the champion with players on your team such as a young Jalen Hurts, an MVP David Johnson. You remember that guy at running back? Stephon Diggs in his first year with the Buffalo Bills. However, since then, it has been a tough stretch for the lovable Lionized, starting behind the 8 ball for the 4th consecutive year, starting winless throughout September to start the season. I know you understand the lessons learned. We talked about it on our draft day special. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Although this year's championship aspirations died in October, the quest for a 3rd consecutive consolation bracket title is still in the cards. All right, unfortunately, this one you might not be aware of here, but I'm going to have to bring in Red Sox Nation to our sad puppies this week. With the loss this past week, you have now recorded your 8th loss of the season. At first, I thought you still had a small chance to play your way into the 7th seed in the last playoff spot, because none of the 6 and 6 teams are playing each other for the rest of the way. It means there's a chance all of them can finish at 6 and 8 and for you to squeak on in. However, after a deeper dive into the schedule, I realized that if all the 6 and 6 teams lose every remaining game, that means me, Amazing Spidey, would end up getting 7 wins. Thus, this marvelous streak of competing in the championship bracket is coming to an end. Oh, competing would be an understatement, actually, as you are the only manager to win back-to-back titles in our league's 25-year history, and you were able to win 3 in a row. And despite a semi-final dud just last year and having the highest point total for any one week in the finals, you were just an ill-timed game away from having your 4th consecutive championship. The dynasty has ended for now, but I anticipate a quick rebuild and return to glory in the near future. A model franchise for all to aspire to be indeed. All right, guys, it is now time to take a look at our waiver wire activity. All right, we had 10 waiver bids this week for 6 NFL players, and 4 players received multiple bids. This was one of our more active weeks as we're in the playoff push here, guys, with 2 weeks left. Devin Neal went to Amazing Spidey for $17, and he had the perfect bid, outbidding Cubert's Rage $16 bid. So Devin Neal was acquired by Amazing Spidey. He was not the only player to get multiple bids this week, as Jaden Higgins, rookie wide receiver for the Texans, went to Maydaddy 2s for $9. And surprisingly enough, there was another bid out there as well. Cubert's Rage put in a bid for $2. So far, Cubert's Rage has been missing out just barely on some acquisitions here. Although he will not go home empty-handed, as Keenan Allen was acquired by Cubert's Rage for $8, outbidding Always Right's $0 bid. So there was no other bids except for a $0 bid. Unfortunately for you, Mr. Cubert's Rage, you paid too much.
You paid too much.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. Tyrod Taylor was picked up this week to Maydaddy 2s for $3, while Cam Dicker also went to Maydaddy 2s for $1, outbidding Cubert's Rage $0 bid. So Cubert's Rage put players on bids on 4 players, was able to get one of them, and Chuba Hubbard went to Go Gators for $0. Actually, a very fine pickup, as he's the Rico Dowdle manager. So now he has the Carolina backfield all locked up. All right, now let's transition. After the waiver wires are done here, let's transition into Week 13 and see how we fare, see how we rank in the most updated power rankings.
I have the power!
By the power of Grayskull.
I'm living in it, no one man should have all that power.
Wingman Power Rankings.
All right, we did have some movement here as, let's see, Team B is still on top of the power rankings as he has the most points scored, the best average weekly winning percentage, and he has the second highest projected points going forward. I'll take the under 40 holding strong with this in number 2 in the power rankings. May Daddy 2 swaps with Always Right, Never Wrong in the 3-4 spot. They took our jobs in Cubert's Rage flip-flop in the 5-6 spot. Fantastics jumps nicely from 9 to 7. Go Gators jumps from 10 to 8. Waddle Away jumps from 11 to 9. So we have those 3 players all jumped 2 spots, which means we had some fallers. Katie's King George Scadaboo had the biggest drop this week from 7 to 11. Crazy Fish had a jump from 12 to 10. And Red Sox Nation, Amazing Spidey, and Lion Eyes hold in the bottom of the power rankings, where Red Sox Nation fell from 8 to 12, one of our bigger fallers after a tough loss last week. All right, guys, it's now time to take a look at who's playing who in this week's matchups.
I want nostalgia!
Ready, down! Put!
This week's matchup.
All right, guys, starting off with Michael's Amazing Spidey at 5-7 and hanging on by dear life up against Alex's They Took Our Jobs at 6-6. Both these teams are actually in desperate need of a win, although Michael's Amazing Spidey would all but be eliminated with a loss this week. Coming into the week, actually, Amazing Spidey had a bit of a strong projection with the news that Amarian Hampton would be out. His projection improved to 105.9 to start Friday anyway, to 98.05 for They Took Our Jobs. And they both had, they both had 2 players going over the Thanksgiving weekend before the Sunday action, as They Took Our Jobs had Jahmyr Gibbs after coming off his 49.9 point game, came in with a disappointing 10 point outing on Thursday. However, DeAndre Swift picked up the slack, getting 20.3 points on the Black Friday game. So both these guys actually combined to beat their projections as a tandem, as they just flip-flopped what they were supposed to get. On the other side, however, the Thursday was not kind to Harrison Butker, as he had 4 extra points, but the second half of the game, on the Black Friday game, in comeback mode, A.J. Brown was an absolute monster. They would just throw to him more consistently and spread out. They wouldn't have to hyper-target him like this in the second half of a lost cause. But A.J. Brown, with his highest scoring game of the year, 30.2 points at 132 yards and 10 receptions and 2 touchdowns. So now their live projection is Amazing Spidey at 118.65 to 98.88. They both have 6 players left to go. They both have their quarterbacks left to go, and they both have 1 special teamer left. Oh no, he's got both of his special teamers to go. So he's got a kicker in defense, while Amazing Spidey's got 3 flexes left to go here. And he's going with the young guys, RJ Harvey, Kamani Vidal, and AJ Brown was his flex? No, we only do 2 flexes. I'm sorry. Kamani Vidal and RJ Harvey are going to be his flexes, while DeAndre Swift and Kyron Williams. Man, these guys, Kyron Williams, DeAndre Swift is an awesome flex duo right here. So we're going to see how this one finishes out here. Amazing Spidey is projected to win by 20 points at the moment, but we all know what that means in the end. All right, our next matchup here is Paul's Cubert Rage at 6-5 up against Reggie's Lionized at 2-10. And again, with all of our 6-6 teams, they are going to need to get the victory here. Coming into the week, the projection was 86 for Paul's Cubert Rage to 96 for Lionized. So the underdog was actually projected to win this game. And Cubert's Rage has had no one play yet in his through the Thanksgiving and Black Friday games. However, Lionized had, did he have 2 players? He had 2 players, Christian Watson and Chase Brown, both overperformed. They combined for 30.1 points. So right now, the live projection is 86 for Cubert's Rage and 101 for Lionized. Again, Lionized only has 6 players left to go, and Cubert's Rage has all 8 of his players. The big matchup here I see is Matthew Stafford versus Aaron Rodgers. And let's see what else. Jalen Waddle versus Emeka Ibuka. So we've got Aaron Rodgers and Waddle on Cubert's Rage side, while we have Matthew Stafford and Emeka Ibuka. These guys are not guaranteed for good games here, but they are good players. We'll see how this one shakes out. Line Eyes is not playing for the playoffs, but he can be spoiler here as Kubert's Rage does need a victory to get into some better positioning here for a chance to make the playoffs. All right, our next game on the docket is Ben's Go Gators at 7-5 up against Red Sox Nation, who's fallen to 4-8. Unfortunately, like I said, unless I missed something, I think Red Sox Nation cannot make the playoffs. However, he can play spoiler as well and improve his seedings in the consolation bracket. Right now, this one had Red Sox Nation projected at 102.5, original projection, while Ben's Go Gators at 93.5. Through the early part of the week, the Thursday and Friday games, they are both looking to get under their projection. Right now, the live projection is Red Sox Nation at 96, while Go Gators has fallen to 92. So we went from a 9-point lead down to a 4-point lead in projections, and that was due to 3 players on, they were all on 3 players for Red Sox Nation over the Thursday and Friday. He had Saquon Barkley with a dud at 5.6. Rashee Rice stepped up once again at 25.4, and Dallas Goedert had a dud at 3.7. And on Go Gators side, he had the Philadelphia defense, not have a great day at 3.5, but Javonte Williams got in the end zone, saved his day here at 15.5 points. So this one is going to be close coming down to the wire, and Go Gators, he can afford a loss, but a win would go a long way in locking his way into the playoffs. Our next game here is Andrew's Crazy Fish versus Bernie's Team B, our point leader. And my, oh my, both these guys need to win. Bernie's going to have the tiebreaker due to his points. But Andrew's Crazy Fish is going to need wins to get in. The original projection was Bernie's Team B with a whopping 16-point advantage here at a 103-point original projection for Team B to Crazy Fish's 85. So this was not looking good for Crazy Fish. However, we've had some duds already in the books here, as we now have a live projection of 84 for Team B to 81. This went from a 17-point projected lead here to a 3-point projected win for Team B. He had Jared Goff get 20 points, and Mark Andrews come through with 6.7, but Amon-Ra St. Brown left early on Thanksgiving, and he got 0 points. That is going to be a killer. And on the other side for Crazy Fish, Dak Prescott had almost 23 points. Andre Yusevich came through with a touchdown for his only catch, but he had 9.4 points. And Tyler Loop in that night game on Thursday could only get 2 points. I don't see any changes coming here from the benches. I think they're going to ride with what they got. We mentioned before, Andrew's Crazy Fish is just a streaming man here. He's going with Kenneth Gainwell, Troy Franklin, Woody Marks. This is going to be tough sledding. They've got better matchups than his opponent, but his opponent has much better players. All right, we have Katie's King George Scadaboo at 6-6 up against May Daddy 2's, who is now the second seed at 7-5. But again, there's so much room for movement here, guys. And these guys had have a live projection now at 116 for May Daddy 2's to 112 for King George Scadaboo. So this is a less than a 5-point live projection differential when it started out the week at a 15-point differential. So Katie's King George is showing up with Kyle Monungai getting 19 points on Friday, Travis Kelce 13 points on Thursday, and May Daddy 2's had 3 players going over this week, the first part of the week here. Starting out with Derrick Henry at 16.9. Jameson Williams rebounded from the Goose to get 23.9. And Jamar Chase at 14.5. This is going to be a bonanza, a high-scoring game. While we have Bijan Robinson yet to go for Katie's King George Scadaboo. And we've got a lot of streaming time. And he's got Jackson Smith and Jigba. So that's going to be the big swing right here, guys. Bijan versus Jackson Smith and Jigba. Bijan Robinson can stay with Jackson Smith and Jigba. She's got better players left. While May Daddy chooses going with some streamers here, including Tyrod Taylor is in his starting lineup. Michael Wilson for the 3rd time. Can he do it? Well, we'll see. And people like that. All right, next game on the docket is Ken's the Fantastics up against Jeff's Always Right, a battle of the brothers. Ken's the Fantastics comes in at 6-6. Jeff's Always Right looking to improve from personal mistakes last week. I'm not saying anyone did anything wrong, but you know what I mean. He's at 7-5. He fell from the number 2 seed all the way down to the, where did he fall to? He fell from the 2 seed all the way down to the 5th seed. So a loss here would be very much damaging for Jeff's Always Right. All right, let's see what we got going on here. This one had a live projection here. A start out projection at just a point differential here, where the Fantastics was projected at 98.5, while Always Right, Never Wrong was projected at 97.25. And right now, they both had several players go in their lineup so far. And the live projection now has switched, as Always Right, Never Wrong has a projection of 97.5, while the Fantastics has fallen just to around 93.25. So this one is at a 4-point live projection differential in favor of Always Right, Never Wrong. They both had, we had 4 players already go for the Fantastics, so he only has 4 players left. He had Jalen Hurts go, Devontae Smith, they combined for 27.5 points, and he had Brandon Aubrey get 13 points, while the Baltimore defense get 2.25. While on Thursday, he had Always Right, Never Wrong, had Patrick Mahomes at 29.44 points, a big day for him, and Josh Jacobs, without getting the end zone, could only get 9.6 points. So that means we have 6 players left for Always Right, Never Wrong, 4 players left for the Fantastics. And the big thing we're looking at here is, can Wan'Dale Robinson do it again for the Fantastics? Can Justin Jefferson get in the end zone or have a better day with the new quarterback, Max Brosmer? And how is Bucky Irving going to do? Is he going to get enough work this week? He's coming in questionable. That is the big thing here. And then with 2 of his top 3 players for Always Right, Never Wrong, he's going to need Puka Nacua to be studly this week, as the rest of his lineup are pretty much streaming flex plays at best. This one's going to be close, guys. It's going to come down to Puka versus Justin Jefferson. Actually, it's going to Puka versus all the receivers. Puka versus Justin Jefferson, Chris Olave, and Wan'Dale Robinson. If he can outscore his highest scoring one of those 3, he's got a good chance to take this one down. Otherwise, Fantastics is going to get the win. Our last game is another battle of the brothers. We have Knicks waddle away, our second lowest scoring team in the league, but is on a 4-game winning streak at 7-5, up against little baby bro here, Brian's under 40, who is now in first place by himself at 8-4. And man, oh man, let's see. The original projection, these guys were projected to be apart by only 1 point. Their live projection is now a 3-point differential, where I'll take the under 40 is now projected at 93.5 points, while Knicks waddle away projected at 90.5 points. Let's see. We had 4 players go already here for Knicks waddle away. He had Lamar Jackson stink it up at 12.5 points. George Pickens at 13.8 and CeeDee Lamb at 20.7. So his Cowboys stack here of the 2 receivers came through with a 24.5 combined game here. Jake Bates, steady enough, not what you really want out of your kicker, but 6.10 won't kill you. It just won't save the day. And then I'll take the under 40. Only had 1 player going prior to the Sunday game. That was Rome Odunze, who had a huge dud at 1.8 points, as the running game was the main factor for the Bears and a big win against the Eagles on Friday. All right, that's it for all of our matchups this week. Once again here, so right now we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5, 6, and 6 teams. All right, and they span from being in the playoffs to being out of the playoffs. So these games are huge for our 6 and 6 teams, and we have the 1, 5, and 7 team, yours truly, who is holding on for dear life, as he has opponents against the two of those 6 and 6 teams in his future to close out the season. So he can kind of knock out the guys who are ahead of him here, but he has to win. All right, guys, we tried something a little different this time. This is going to be a shorter show this time. I want to see how long things fit in here. I hope you like our new segments of the best and the worst and all this stuff. So we're going to try and keep this one to a fantasy football league only. That way we're not spilling over into our other shows that are more for the public here. So I hope you like this one. This one was all about you guys, Wingman Fantasy Football players. Again, anyone else is more than welcome to follow along, but this is a tribute to our league members. With that being said, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcasting platforms. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and the Odyssey app. Do me the favor there, guys. Even if you don't listen to them on those platforms, go ahead and click follow, 5-star review, download it. Get us some downloads here. I'd appreciate that very much. But if you want to watch our show, see our newly decorated bar room, it's time for Christmas, guys. You can go to our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube or youtube.com/@wingmanfantasyfootball. When you head over there, guys, do me the favor, do me the honor. Why don't you hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. and let us know any comments you want. We'll put them into our next mailbag segment. All right, guys, with that being said, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty, and we will see you next time. Good luck, everybody. We all need these wins. All right, see you next time, guys.